When a self-made millionaire accuses his humble maid of stealing a family heirloom, the truth she reveals shatters his reality. Nathan Prescott was the epitome of wealth and success. Having built a thriving investment empire from scratch, his life was a showcase of opulence. His sprawling estate, perched on a secluded hill, boasted intricate gardens, private pools, and art collections that only the richest could afford. But behind the grandeur, Nathan lived an isolated existence. His days were meticulously scheduled, dominated by board meetings and financial projections, leaving no room for personal connections. Deep in his heart, he carried a wound. He rarely spoke of the death of his sister Claire, years ago in a tragic accident that left him riddled with regret. On the other side of town, Ruby Hayes was a single mother doing everything she could to make ends meet. Raising her lively 9-year-old daughter Lily, Ruby worked tirelessly as a waitress by day and a janitor by night. Her ultimate dream was to secure a better future for Lily, free from the struggles she endured growing up. When Ruby received an offer to work as a maid in Nathan Prescott's estate, she saw it as a golden opportunity to improve their lives. Little did she know, the job would pull her into a world far more complicated than she could imagine. From the moment Ruby set foot on the estate, she felt out of place. The towering gates, manicured lawns, and grand entrance were unlike anything she had ever known. The housekeeper, Mrs. Lennox, greeted her at the door with a steely gaze and an air of authority. "Punctuality and discretion are non-negotiable," she said firmly, handing Ruby a detailed schedule. Despite the daunting rules, Ruby's resolve never wavered. She was here for Lily, and determined to make this work. Nathan, on the other hand, barely acknowledged Ruby's arrival. Focused entirely on his business dealings, he left the management of his household to Mrs. Lennox. Ruby's days were spent cleaning endless rooms, polishing expensive decor, and tiptoeing through the silent corridors of a house that felt more like a museum than a home. One afternoon, while dusting a bookshelf in Nathan's study, Ruby came across an old photograph tucked between two leather-bound books. The picture showed a young Nathan with a smiling woman who bore a striking resemblance to Ruby's late husband, Aaron. She froze, her breath catching as memories of Aaron flooded back. Though Ruby quickly replaced the photo, questions began to stir in her mind about the man she now worked for. Ruby couldn't shake the image of the photograph she had found. She hadn't thought about Aaron in years. She's passing had left her emotionally scarred, but she had pushed through for Lily's sake. Now, seeing the man in the picture, so eerily familiar yet slightly different, filled her with unease. Who was the woman in the photo? And why did Nathan Prescott have it hidden in his study? Ruby resolved to keep her discovery to herself, unsure of how to approach the subject or whether it was even worth mentioning. Meanwhile, Nathan carried on with his life, unaware of Ruby's inner turmoil. To him, she was just another staff member, hired to ensure the smooth running of his home. But there was something about Ruby's presence that occasionally caught his attention. Her quiet determination reminded him of some, though he couldn't quite place who. It was Lily, however, who unknowingly began to bridge the gap between the two worlds. When Ruby brought her to the estate after school one day, the young girl's curiosity got the better of her. Sneaking away while her mother worked, Lily wandered into the garden, where she stumbled upon Nathan sitting alone. Her innocent question, "Why do you look so sad?" caught Nathan off guard. At first, Nathan was startled by Lily's sudden appearance. He wasn't used to children around the house, and her directness left him at a loss for words. "I am not sad," he replied curtly, but Lily tilted her head as if she didn't believe him. Before he could dismiss her, she asked another question. "Do you know my mommy?" Nathan frowned, unsure of what she meant. "She works here now," Lily continued, pointing toward the house. "She's really nice. You should talk to her." With that, Lily skipped off, leaving Nathan puzzled but strangely intrigued. Later that evening, Ruby was mortified to learn that Lily had spoken to Nathan. "You can't just wander off and talk to people without asking me first," she scolded. But Lily simply shrugged. "He looked lonely," she said matter-of-factly. Though Ruby brushed it off, her daughter's words stayed with her. As the days went on, Nathan found himself thinking about Lily's innocent observation. Was he lonely? He'd never considered either, had always viewed his solitary life as a necessity, a byproduct of success. But now, for the first time in years, he began to wonder if there was something missing. And, unknowingly, Ruby and Lily had begun to awaken a part of him he thought was long buried. Nathan Prescott's life, though meticulously ordered, began to feel subtly disrupted by the presence of Ruby and Lily. Their arrival brought an unfamiliar warmth to the otherwise cold, quiet estate. Lily's unfiltered curiosity and bright energy stood in stark contrast to the solemnity that had gripped the mansion for years. She would often be found exploring the gardens or peeking into rooms, her laughter echoing faintly through the halls, a sound Nathan couldn't help but notice. One afternoon, as Ruby meticulously cleaned the library, she stumbled upon an unopened letter tucked beneath a pile of papers on Nathan's desk. She resisted the urge to read it, instead neatly placing it where it belonged. But the name Claire Prescott on the envelope caught her eye. It was clear that whoever Claire was, she held significance to Nathan. That same day, Mrs. Lennox, the housekeeper, caught Ruby lingering in the study and coldly reminded her, "You are here to clean, not snoop." Ruby apologized, but the encounter left her with a growing curiosity about Nathan's life. Nathan, meanwhile, found himself drawn to Lily in an unexpected way. Her straightforwardness reminded him of Claire, his late sister, who had been the only person in his life unafraid to call him out or ask him difficult questions. Claire had been the heart of their family, and her sudden death had left a void Nathan could never fill. As Lily chattered away during their brief encounters in the garden, she unwittingly opened old wounds Nathan had long since buried. One day, while walking through the garden, Nathan noticed Lily trying to climb a small tree. "You'll hurt yourself if you keep at that," he said, his voice gruff but not unkind. Lily looked at him and replied, "My mommy says you have to try hard things if you want to get better. Do you ever try hard things?" The question left Nathan speechless. It had been years since anyone had challenged him, let alone a child. As Lily and Nathan's bond grew, Ruby began to notice subtle changes in her employer's demeanor. He seemed less distant, more approachable, though his interactions with her remained formal. One evening, Ruby found Nathan sitting in the garden with a chessboard, teaching Lily how to play. The sight was so unexpected that it brought tears to her eyes. For a moment, she saw a glimpse of the man Nathan could be, a man who wasn't defined by his wealth or coldness, but by the kindness he had buried beneath years of pain. As weeks went by, Ruby started to uncover more pieces of the puzzle that was Nathan Prescott. One day, while organizing a closet near the master bedroom, she found a dusty box labeled "Claire's Things." Inside were childhood mementos, old photographs, and a journal. Ruby couldn't help but notice the love and admiration Claire seemed to have for her brother, evident in her scribbled notes and heartfelt entries. Ruby quickly closed the box, knowing it wasn't her place to pry, but the discovery deepened her empathy for Nathan. Meanwhile, Nathan began opening up, albeit in small ways. Over dinner one evening, he confided in Mrs. Lennox that Lily reminded him of Claire as a child, curious, bold, and full of life. "She's too young to have that kind of wisdom, isn't she?" Nathan mused. Mrs. Lennox, usually reserved, surprised him by replying, "Children see the world without all the walls we build. Perhaps that's why she reaches you in ways others can't." Ruby, however, was still struggling to balance her growing responsibilities at work with her life at home. Lily's unbridled curiosity had already caused a few awkward situations, and Ruby feared that she might overstep boundaries again. One day, when Ruby arrived to clean Nathan's office, she found Lily there, examining the same photograph Ruby had stumbled upon weeks earlier, the one of Nathan and a mysterious woman. "Mommy, doesn't he look like Daddy in this picture?" Lily asked innocently, holding up the photo. Ruby's heart skipped a beat as Nathan walked in. "Is something wrong?" Nathan asked, his eyes narrowing at the sight of Ruby holding the photograph. Panicking, Ruby stammered an apology, explaining that Lily had wandered in without her knowledge. Nathan, however, seemed less concerned about Ruby's explanation and more fixated on the photo. He took it from Lily's hands and stared at it, his expression unreadable. That evening, Nathan retreated to his study, the photograph still in hand. Memories flooded back, memories of his sister, and the day she introduced him to her best friend, Aaron Hayes. The same Aaron Hayes who, unbeknownst to Nathan, was Ruby's late husband. Nathan's mind raced as he pieced together the connection. But he chose to say nothing for now, unsure of how to confront Ruby with what he had realized. As the lines between their lives blurred, the tension in the household grew. Ruby couldn't shake the feeling that Nathan was hiding something, just as Nathan wrestled with whether to reveal the truth about his connection to her past. And as Lily continued to bring light into Nathan's life, the walls around his heart began to crumble, setting the stage for a confrontation neither Nathan nor Ruby could avoid. Nathan Prescott's mind was restless. The photograph had opened a floodgate of memories he had long buried. He remembered the days when his sister Claire was alive, her laughter filling their home and her unshakable bond with her best friend, Aaron Hayes. Aaron had been like a brother to Nathan, a source of wisdom and camaraderie during his early days as a budding entrepreneur. But they had drifted apart after Claire's tragic death, and Nathan never heard from Aaron again. Now, staring at Ruby, the resemblance between her and Aaron was undeniable. It wasn't just her features, but also her resilience and the way she carried herself, always prioritizing her child. Nathan couldn't shake the suspicion that Ruby might be connected to the Aaron Hayes he once knew, but he chose to remain silent, unsure of how to approach her without reopening wounds for both of them. Ruby, on the other hand, felt the tension growing. Nathan's demeanor had shifted ever so slightly. He no longer avoided her completely, but his glances lingered. His tone softened, and there was a weight in his eyes that she couldn't decipher. Still, she focused on her work and her promise to give Lily a better life. The breakthrough came one afternoon, when Lily ventured into Nathan's private gardenia space he had meticulously cultivated but rarely allowed others to visit. To his surprise, Lily asked if she could help him plant flowers. For a moment, Nathan hesitated, but her eager smile melted his defenses. "All right," he said, handing her a pair of gloves that dwarfed her tiny hands. As they worked side by side, Lily peppered him with questions about his plants, his life, and his favorite memories. "I don't have many favorite memories," he admitted, his voice barely audible. But Lily's cheerful response, "Then we'll make new ones," left him speechless. As days turned into weeks, Nathan found himself drawn to the simple joy of spending time with Lily. She reminded him of the innocence he had lost and the family he had pushed away. Ruby noticed the growing bond and couldn't help but feel a mix of gratitude and apprehension. Nathan's interest in Lily was kind, even fatherly, but it also felt deeply personal, as if he saw something in Lily that Ruby didn't fully understand. One evening, while cleaning the library, Ruby found an open notebook on Nathan's desk. Scrawled across the page were ideas for a children's foundation, a project to provide education and opportunities for underprivileged kids. The idea touched her deeply, but it also raised questions. Why, after years of isolation, was Nathan suddenly interested in such a cause? And how much of that interest stemmed from Lily's presence in his life? The growing connection between Nathan, Ruby, and Lily didn't go unnoticed by Mrs. Lennox. Though fiercely loyal to Nathan, the housekeeper was skeptical of Ruby's intentions. One evening, as Ruby prepared to leave, Mrs. Lennox cornered her near the kitchen. "You should remember your place," she warned, her tone cold. "Mr. Prescott is a man of status, and this house has rules for a reason." Ruby was stunned but refused to be intimidated. "I am just here to do my job," she replied firmly. Still, the exchange left her unsettled, and she began to wonder if her presence in Nathan's life was causing more trouble than good. Meanwhile, Nathan struggled with his own turmoil. The more time he spent with Lily, the more he saw echoes of Aaron in her determination and wit. His suspicions grew, but he lacked the courage to confront Ruby about her past. Instead, he buried himself in work, throwing his energy into the plans of the Children's Foundation. He even reached out to Miss Evelyn Grant, his late sister's mentor and a retired philanthropist, for advice. Evelyn, an elegant and wise woman in her 60s, had always been a guiding presence in Nathan's life. "You are changing, Nathan," Evelyn said during one of their meetings, "and I can see it's because of that little girl and her mother. Don't fight it. Sometimes the people we least expect bring us the most clarity." Her words lingered with Nathan long after their conversation. Ruby's world, however, was about to take another unexpected turn. While sorting through old belongings in the storage room one evening, she stumbled upon a ledger that appeared to be a record of Nathan's charitable donations. The entries spanned years and included sizable amounts given to orphanages, scholarships, and hospitals, all in the name of Claire's legacy. Touched by his generosity, Ruby began to see Nathan in a new light. He wasn't just a cold and distant businessman. He was a man deeply affected by loss, channeling his grief into acts of kindness. But Nathan's walls hadn't come down entirely. One fateful morning, as Ruby arrived for work, she was greeted by an unexpected sight. Police officers standing at the entrance. Nathan had accused someone of stealing a valuable family heirloom, a ring that once belonged to Claire. The accusation left the staff in shock, and Ruby's heart sank when she realized the finger of blame was pointed squarely at her. "Do you have any idea what this ring means to me?" Nathan demanded, his voice cold and sharp. Ruby, stunned and hurt, denied the accusation, but Nathan wasn't ready to listen. As the officers began their investigation, Ruby could feel the fragile trust they had built start to crumble. And yet, she knew there was more to this situation than met the eye. The air in the Prescott mansion was heavy with tension. Ruby sat in silence in the parlor, her hands trembling as the officers questioned her about the missing ring. It felt like a nightmare. One moment, she was trying to do her job and provide for Lily, and the next, she was being accused of a crime she didn't commit. Nathan's piercing gaze never left her, his expression a mixture of suspicion and disappointment. "I didn't take anything," Ruby said firmly, her voice shaking but resolute. "I would never steal from you." Nathan crossed his arms, his tone cold. "The ring didn't just vanish into thin air. It's one of the few things I have left of my sister, and I trusted you to respect this home." Ruby felt the weight of his words, but a part of her was filled with anger. How could he accuse her so easily? She thought about Lily, who was playing quietly upstairs, unaware of the storm brewing below. Ruby couldn't let this accusation ruin everything she'd worked for, not for her daughter's sake. The investigation continued, and as the officers searched the mansion, Ruby's mind raced. She knew she hadn't taken the ring, but who had, and why? It didn't take long for suspicion to turn toward Mrs. Lennox, whose curt demeanor and history of disapproving glances hadn't gone unnoticed. The officers questioned her as well, but she maintained her innocence, even suggesting that Ruby's financial struggles made her the more likely culprit. Amid the chaos, Lily appeared at the top of the staircase, holding a small velvet box in her hands. "Mommy, is this what everyone's looking for?" she called out, her voice innocent and full of curiosity. All eyes turned to Lily as she descended the stairs, clutching the box tightly. Ruby's heart dropped. Nathan strode over, snatching the box from Lily's hands and opening it to reveal the missing ring. "Where did you find this?" Nathan demanded, his voice sharp but controlled. Lily frowned, her little brows furrowed in confusion. "I found it in the garden by the big tree. I thought it was pretty, so I brought it inside to show Mommy, but I forgot about it." The room fell silent. Ruby's eyes filled with tears of relief, but also frustration. Nathan's accusations had wounded her deeply, and though the truth had come to light, the damage couldn't be undone so easily. Nathan stared at the ring in his hand, the realization of his mistake washing over him like a tidal wave. His voice softened as he turned to Ruby. I am sorry," he said, his words hesitant but genuine. "I jumped to conclusions, and I was wrong." Ruby looked at him, her expression unreadable. "You didn't just accuse me of stealing," she said quietly. "You accused me of betraying your trust without even giving me the chance to defend myself. Do you have any idea what that feels like?" Nathan was silent. For the first time in years, he was forced to confront the walls he had built around himself, the same walls that had made it so easy for him to suspect Ruby, despite all the good she had brought into his life. Later that evening, the house was quiet once more. Lily had fallen asleep in Ruby's arms after the ordeal, and Ruby sat by the fireplace, lost in thought. She knew Nathan's apology had been sincere, but it didn't erase the hurt she felt. She thought about Aaron, and how different he had been, always quick to trust, always believing in the best of people. Nathan found Ruby in the parlor, standing hesitantly at the doorway. He looked less like the imposing millionaire she had met weeks ago, and more like a man grappling with his own regrets. "Ruby," he began, his voice low, "can I speak with you?" Ruby nodded, though she wasn't sure what she wanted to hear. Nathan stepped into the room, holding the ring in his hand. "This belonged to Claire," he said, sitting down across from her. "She gave it to me just before she passed away. It was her way of telling me to hold on to the things that mattered, the people who mattered. But I didn't listen. I shut everyone out instead. Ruby listened quietly, her heart softening despite herself. "Is something I need to tell you," Nathan continued. "When I saw that photograph the other day, it brought back memories. Memories of someone I haven't thought about in years. My sister's best friend, Aaron Hayes." He paused, studying Ruby's face for any sign of recognition. I think he was your husband." Ruby's breath caught in her throat. She had never spoken about Aaron to Nathan. And yet, here he was, connecting the pieces of their shared past. How do you know Aaron?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan explained everything, how Aaron had been like a brother to him, how they had drifted apart after Claire's death, and how he had always regretted losing touch. As he spoke, Ruby felt a surge of emotions: grief for Aaron, gratitude for the connection they had unknowingly shared, and a strange sense of destiny that had brought her to Nathan's home. "It seems we've been linked all along," Nathan said softly. "I don't know if that's fate or coincidence, but I do know one thing. I've wronged you, Ruby, and I want to make it right." Ruby looked at him, seeing the vulnerability in his eyes. For the first time, she realized that Nathan wasn't just a man trapped by his wealth and past. He was someone searching for redemption, just as she was searching for stability and hope. "I don't need you to make things right," Ruby said finally. "I just need you to be better. For Lily, for yourself, and for the memory of the people we've both lost." Nathan nodded, her words cutting through the last of his defenses. He knew she was right. This was his chance to break free from the chains of his past and start anew. The next morning, Nathan decided to take the first step toward making amends. He invited Ruby and Lily to join him in the library, a space he had always kept private. Ruby hesitated at first, unsure of Nathan's intentions, but eventually agreed. When they arrived, they found Nathan seated at the large oak desk, a stack of old photo albums and letters spread out before him. "These belong to Claire," Nathan said, gesturing to the albums. "She kept everything: photos, notes, even silly mementos from trips we took as kids. After she passed, I locked these away because it hurt too much to look at them. But I think it's time I face those memories, and I want to share them with you." Ruby was taken aback by Nathan's vulnerability. For weeks, she had seen glimpses of the man behind the cold exterior, but this was the first time he had fully let his guard down. Lily, curious as ever, climbed onto Nathan's lap and began flipping through one of the albums. "Who's this?" she asked, pointing to a photo of Claire and Aaron standing side by side. Nathan smiled faintly. "That's Claire, my sister, and Aaron, your dad. They were best friends, inseparable. Aaron had this way of making everyone feel like they mattered. He was one of the best people I ever knew." Hearing Nathan speak about Aaron brought tears to Ruby's eyes. She had spent so much time mourning Aaron's loss that she had forgotten how many lives he had touched. For the first time, she felt a sense of peace, knowing that Aaron's memory was still alive in the hearts of those who had known him. As they continued looking through the albums, Nathan shared stories about his childhood, his relationship with Claire, and the bond he had shared with Aaron. Ruby, in turn, opened up about her own journey, how she had met Aaron, their life together, and the challenges she had faced after his passing. The conversation was cathartic for both of them, and by the time the morning turned to afternoon, it was clear that the tension between them had eased. Nathan's apology wasn't just words. It was a genuine effort to bridge the gap between their lives and find common ground. But the day wasn't over yet. That evening, as Ruby prepared to leave, Nathan approached her with an idea. "I want to do something for Lily," he said. "For Aaron, too. I've been working on this idea for a while, and I think it's time to move forward with it." Ruby looked at him curiously. "What kind of idea?" Nathan hesitated for a moment before answering. "A foundation. Something that helps children like Lily kids who have so much potential but not enough opportunities. I want to name it after Claire and Aaron. They both believed in lifting others up, and I think it's time I do the same." Ruby was stunned by Nathan's proposal. It was more than she had ever expected, and it showed her just how much he had changed in the short time she had known him. Over the next few weeks, Nathan threw himself into the creation of the foundation, enlisting Ruby's help as a consultant. Though hesitant at first, Ruby quickly realized that her insights as a mother and her experiences with struggle made her uniquely qualified to contribute. Together, they brainstormed ideas for programs, fundraising, and outreach, with Nathan using his wealth and influence to bring the project to life. Lily, ever curious and full of energy, became a frequent visitor to Nathan's study, often drawing pictures or telling stories while he worked. Her presence brought a sense of warmth to the mansion that it hadn't seen in years, and Nathan found himself smiling more often than he ever thought possible. But not everyone was thrilled about the changes. Mrs. Lennox, who had served Nathan loyally for over a decade, struggled to accept Ruby's growing role in his life. She had always prided herself on maintaining order in the household, and Ruby's arrival had disrupted that balance. One evening, she approached Nathan with her concerns. "Mr. Prescott," she began cautiously, "I've always respected your decisions, but I can't help feeling that this arrangement with Ruby is causing unnecessary complications." Nathan looked at her thoughtfully. "I understand your concerns, Mrs. Lennox," he said, his tone firm but kind. "But Ruby and Lily have brought something to this house that it desperately needed life. For years, I've let this place become a shrine to the past, but they've reminded me that tea here is more to life than memories. I hope you can see that too." Mrs. Lennox nodded, though her expression remained guarded. She didn't fully understand the depth of Nathan's transformation, but she respected him enough to trust his judgment. As the foundation began to take shape, Nathan hosted a small gathering at the mansion to introduce the project to potential donors and partners. Ruby was nervous about attending. She wasn't used to being in such an affluent crowd, but Nathan assured her that her presence was invaluable. During the event, Nathan gave a heartfelt speech about the inspiration behind the foundation, sharing his personal journey of loss and redemption. He spoke about Claire and Aaron, the lessons they had taught him, and how Ruby and Lily had reignited his hope for the future. When he finished, the room erupted into applause, and Ruby couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. For the first time, she saw Nathan not as a distant and guarded businessman, but as a man determined to make a difference. The evening ended with Nathan pulling Ruby aside to thank her. "I couldn't have done this without you," he said sincerely. "You've shown me what it means to care again. I'll always be grateful for that." Ruby smiled, her heart full. "And I'll always be grateful for what you've done for Lily. Aaron would have been proud of you, Nathan. I know I am." The weeks that followed the foundation's launch were a whirlwind of activity. Nathan, once reclusive and detached, became fully immersed in the project, meeting with educators, community leaders, and advocates for children's welfare. Ruby, now officially a part of the foundation's advisory board, worked alongside him, using her insights to ensure that the programs would truly benefit struggling families like hers. For Ruby, this new role was a life-changing experience. She had always been resilient, finding ways to make ends meet for Lily, but she had never imagined herself in a position where she could help others on such a large scale. The foundation became a source of purpose for her, and every success felt like a victory not just for her, but for Aaron's memory as well. Meanwhile, the mansion underwent a transformation of its own. What had once been a cold and lifeless space began to hum with energy and warmth. Nathan opened the estate's vast grounds to host events for the foundation, inviting children and families from all walks of life to participate in workshops, games, and celebrations. Lily, with her boundless curiosity and charm, quickly became a favorite among the staff and visitors. She had a knack for making people smile, and her bond with Nathan only grew stronger. They spent hours playing chess, a game Nathan had taught her, and Lily often insisted on teaching him card games in return. One sunny afternoon, Nathan invited Ruby and Lily to join him for a picnic on the mansion's expansive lawn. As they sat beneath the shade of a large oak tree, enjoying sandwiches and lemonade, Nathan surprised them with an announcement. "I've been thinking about how much this foundation means to me," he began, "and how much it's been shaped by both of you. I want to officially rename it the Prescott Scott Foundation, in honor of Aaron and everything he stood for." Ruby was speechless. Tears welled up in her eyes as she looked at Nathan, her gratitude evident. "I don't know what to say," she whispered. Nathan smiled. "You don't have to say anything. This is as much your legacy as it is mine." As the foundation grew, so did the connections between Nathan, Ruby, and Lily. The walls Nathan had built around himself for years were now completely gone, replaced by a genuine openness that surprised even him. He found joy in the simplest moments, helping Lily with her school projects, sharing meals with Ruby, and hearing the laughter that now filled his once empty home. Even Mrs. Lennox, who had initially been skeptical of Ruby's influence, found herself softening. One evening, as she watched Ruby help Lily with her homework at the kitchen table, she approached quietly and placed a hand on Ruby's shoulder. "You've brought something special to this house," Mrs. Lennox said. "I see now why Mr. Prescott values you so much. Thank you for reminding him and all of us what it means to live again." Ruby was touched by Mrs. Lennox's words. Though they had started off on rocky ground, she had come to respect the housekeeper's dedication and attention to detail. "Thank you, Mrs. Lennox. That means a lot coming from you." As the mansion continued to evolve into a place of life and hope, Nathan received a surprise visit from his mentor, Dr. Regina Collins. She had been a quiet supporter of his transformation from the sidelines, but seeing the progress firsthand moved her deeply. "You've done something remarkable here, Nathan," Dr. Collins said, her voice filled with pride. "This foundation, this home, it's everything Claire and Aaron would have wanted. They'd be proud of you, just as I am." Nathan nodded, feeling a swell of emotion. For years, he had avoided conversations about Claire and Aaron, fearing the pain of their loss. But now, he realized that keeping their memories alive through his actions was the greatest tribute he could give them. The transformation was most evident during the Foundation's inaugural community event. Families filled the mansion's grounds, enjoying food, games, and activities designed to inspire and empower children. Nathan watched from the sidelines as Lily played with other kids, her laughter echoing across the lawn. Ruby stood beside him, her expression one of pure joy. "This is just the beginning," Nathan said softly. Here is so much more we can do." Ruby smiled, her heart full. "And we'll do it together." Months passed, and the Prescott Scott Foundation flourished, becoming a beacon of hope for countless families. Nathan, once a lonely and withdrawn millionaire, had transformed into a man deeply committed to making a difference. His mansion, once a cold and desolate place, was now a hub of activity and joy, with the sound of children's laughter filling its halls. Ruby's life had also changed in ways she could never have imagined. With Nathan's support, she and Lily had moved into a cozy new home in a welcoming neighborhood. The house, a gift from Nathan, was simple yet beautiful, with a garden that Lily immediately claimed as her magic forest. Ruby found herself thriving in her new role with the foundation. She had discovered a passion for advocacy and helping others, and her insights as a mother and widow brought a unique perspective to the team. Through her work, she met families facing struggles similar to her own, and found a deep sense of purpose in supporting them. Nathan and Lily's bond had grown stronger with time. Every weekend, Nathan visited their new home, often bringing books or games for Lily. The two spent hours playing chess, reading stories, or simply talking about life. For Lily, Nathan had become a beloved figure, part mentor, part father figure, and entirely irreplaceable. On a warm spring evening, Ruby invited Nathan to dinner at their new home. It was a simple meal, but the warmth and love around the table made it feel like a celebration. As they ate, Nathan couldn't help but reflect on how much his life had changed since Ruby and Lily had entered it. After dinner, as the three of them sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily turned to Nathan with a question that made his heart swell. "Uncle Nathan," she asked, her voice soft, "do you think my daddy is proud of us?" Nathan's eyes filled with emotion as he answered, "I know he is, Lily. He'd be so proud of you and your moment. I hope he'd be proud of me too." Ruby placed a hand on Nathan's arm, her eyes filled with gratitude. "He would be, Nathan. I know he would." The impact of their journey extended far beyond their own lives. The Prescott Scott Foundation became a cornerstone of the community, funding educational programs, scholarships, and recreational activities for children in need. Nathan and Ruby worked tirelessly to ensure that the foundation remained true to its mission, and their efforts were met with overwhelming support. One day, Nathan received a letter from a young girl who had attended one of the foundation's programs. In her note, she described how the scholarship she had received allowed her to pursue her dream of becoming a doctor. She thanked Nathan for giving her a chance and promised to one day pay it forward. Reading the letter, Nathan felt a profound sense of fulfillment. It was a reminder of why he had started this journey and how far he had come. He framed the letter and placed it on his desk as a daily source of inspiration. Ruby, too, found herself deeply moved by the stories of those the foundation had helped. She often thought of Aaron, imagining how proud he would be of what they had accomplished. Though she still missed him every day, she felt his presence in the work she did and the life she was building with Lily. The final piece of Nathan's transformation came during a community event held at the mansion. Families from all over the city gathered to celebrate the foundation's achievements, enjoying food, games, and performances. Nathan stood on the stage, looking out at the crowd, and felt a deep sense of gratitude. As he began his speech, he paused to acknowledge the two people who had changed his life forever. "I want to thank Ruby and Lily Scott," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "They reminded me of what it means to care, to hope, and to believe in the power of connection. This foundation wouldn't exist without them, and I owe them more than I can ever express." The crowd erupted into applause, and Ruby, standing in the audience with Lily by her side, felt her heart swell with pride. In the final scene, Nathan, Ruby, Lily, and a small group of close friends shared a quiet dinner at the mansion. As they laughed and shared stories, the once empty house felt alive in a way it hadn't for years. Looking around the table, Nathan thought of something Claire had once told him. "Sometimes, the family we build is even more powerful than the one we're born into." And for the first time in a long time, he felt truly at peace.